Love and devotion. I remember the first time he looked at me, not the casual glance of a stranger, but the kind of gaze that lingers, that makes you feel seen in a way you didn't know you craved. His smile was easy, unhurried, and it carried the promise of something more. For 5 years, I let that promise define me. I loved him with a devotion that consumed every corner of my life. My mornings began with his voice, my nights ended with his laughter. I memorized the rhythm of his footsteps, the warmth of his hand, the way his eyes softened when he teased me. I gave him everything, my trust, my secrets, my prayers whispered into the silence. I believed he was my future, the man who had wooed me with patience, persistence, and words that felt like poetry. He told me I was his safe place, and I believed him. Love made me gentle. I forgave his flaws, overlooked his absences, and carried his burdens as though they were mine. My friends said I was too devoted, but I only smiled. To me, devotion was not weakness, it was proof of love. I thought we were unbreakable. I thought 5 years of love could withstand anything. But I was wrong, Meredith. Daphne, I traced his laughter like sunlight across my skin, believing devotion was the language of eternity. My heart was a garden, and he was the rain. Meredith, but gardens rot when the rain turns cold. Even as I loved, a shadow whispered, one day, he will betray, and I will not forgive. The betrayal. I had given him 5 years of my life, 5 years of laughter, sacrifice, and unwavering loyalty. I believed that kind of devotion could not be discarded. But betrayal has a way of arriving quietly, like a shadow slipping under the door. It began with distance. His calls grew shorter, his visits less frequent. Where once his eyes lit up at the sight of me, now they wandered, restless, searching for something beyond my presence. I told myself it was stress, that love sometimes bends under pressure. But love should not break so easily. The day he ended it, his words were sharp, almost casual. I don't love you anymore. I need freedom. Freedom from me, from the very devotion that had sustained him. My heart cracked in silence. I did not beg, though every fiber of me wanted to. I did not scream, though the betrayal burned like fire in my chest. Instead, I smiled faintly, masking the storm inside. He thought he had won, that he had walked away unscathed. But in that moment, something inside me shifted. The woman who had loved him with tenderness was gone. In her place stood someone colder, sharper, someone who would not forgive. If he wanted freedom, I would give it to him. But freedom would come at a price. Daphne, I held his absence like a wound, waiting for his return, praying that love could bend but not break. Meredith, he broke me with a single word, freedom. And in that fracture, I found steel. My silence became sharper than any scream. The retaliation. Betrayal did not break me, it reshaped me. The woman who once prayed for his success now prayed for his downfall. My love had been pure, but his betrayal had poisoned it, turning devotion into vengeance. I did not shout, I did not plead. Instead, I became quiet, deliberate. My revenge was not loud, it was surgical. I began with his friends. The ones who had cheered for us, who believed in our love. I whispered truths into their ears, truths laced with venom. I told them of his lies, his carelessness, his cruelty. I let them see the man behind the mask. One by one, their loyalty crumbled. Then his family. I visited his mother with tears in my eyes, speaking of promises broken, of sacrifices wasted. I painted him as ungrateful, reckless, undeserving of her pride. Her eyes dimmed, her voice faltered. I had planted doubt where once there was trust. Colleagues followed. I exposed his weaknesses, his failures, his arrogance. I made sure whispers reached the right ears, that opportunities slipped through his fingers. His reputation, once untouchable, began to rot. And all the while, I remained calm. Loving in tone, but ruthless in intent. My vengeance was. Daphne, I once carried his burdens as though they were mine, shielding him from storms with my own fragile hands. Meredith, now I became the storm. With whispers and truths, I stripped him bare, turning every bond he cherished into ash. Climax, the fall. I watched from a distance as the walls of his world collapsed. The man who once walked with pride now moved like a shadow, his shoulders heavy, his laughter gone. Friends avoided him, family doubted him, colleagues whispered behind his back. He had built his life on charm and confidence, but I had dismantled it with precision. Every bond he cherished, every circle that once embraced him, now turned cold. He was alone, and he knew why. I remember seeing him one evening, sitting at the corner of a cafe we once loved. His hands trembled around a cup of coffee, his eyes hollow. He looked up and saw me across the room. For a moment, hope flickered in his gaze, hope that I might forgive, that I might still love. But I only smiled, a smile that carried no warmth. He understood then. He realized that the woman who had loved him with devotion had become the architect of his ruin. His regret was written across his face. Regret for the betrayal, regret for the arrogance, regret for believing I would remain broken. He had wanted freedom, but freedom had cost him everything. And I, once his safe place, had become his reckoning. Daphne, I remembered the cafe where his smile once warmed me, and for a heartbeat, I longed to forgive. Meredith, but forgiveness is a luxury for the naive. My smile carried no warmth, only the echo of ruin. He saw it, and regret carved itself into his bones. His regret. Years passed, but time did not heal him, it hollowed him. The man who once stood surrounded by friends now walked alone, his footsteps echoing in empty rooms. His family's pride had faded into disappointment, his colleagues no longer trusted his word, and the warmth of companionship had long abandoned him. I saw him once, sitting on a park bench at dusk. His shoulders slumped, his eyes vacant, his hands clasped as though holding onto something invisible. He looked older, not in years but in spirit, worn down by the weight of regret. He caught sight of me. For a moment, his gaze softened, pleading silently for forgiveness. But forgiveness was a gift I no longer carried. I had given him love, devotion, and years of my life. He had shattered it all. My vengeance had been my answer, and now his loneliness was his inheritance. I walked past him, my heart steady. I was no longer the woman who had loved him blindly. I was the woman who had survived betrayal, who had turned pain into power. And he, once the architect of my heartbreak, now lived in the ruins of his own choices. His regret was his prison, and I was free. Daphne, I walked past him, steady, remembering the girl who once believed love was enough. Meredith, he sat in the ruins of his choices, his regret a prison. And I, no longer broken, was free.